Good to go?
Yep.
All right. Mr. City Manager, we are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, good evening. We have 3 informational items for your consideration tonight. The first will be presented by Assistant City Manager Bear, having to do with the Metropolitan Area Regional Radio System. The next 2 will be presented by Building Official Napoli, having to do with the 2021 International Construction Codes and a proposed amendment to our special event ordinance. So with that, Bob, please start.
Mayor, Council, as you remember, back in 2011, actually in 2009, I think we passed the PSST sales tax, and a portion of that was so we could get into the Metropolitan Area Regional Radio System. So you'll hear me talk about MARS a lot, but that's the acronym for it. I managed that project back in 2011, and that was about a $1.6 million project to get us on board, and we were one of the first actually in the area to join Kansas City onto this MARS system. So as we move forward, just know that we're about 10 years into this now, and that the user equipment it has a shelf life on it. I mean, and we're kind of getting towards the end. And we got some decisions to make here towards the end, because Kansas City's kind of, and the feds are kind of forcing our hand a little bit here. So let me review the radio system real quick, and I'll let you know kind of how it works. Around the entire city is a ring of towers, radio towers, and that's represented by that big circle of towers there. One tower talks to the other tower that talks to the other tower, and I can tell you up north here, there's a tower up in Clay County, over by, in between Excelsior and Liberty. There's a tower at the old North Zone station, the old Bumblebee we used to call it, right? There's one there, and there's one over at Worlds of Fun, and then there's a tower down at City Hall. Actually, there's an antenna on City Hall in downtown Kansas City, and there's one over in Riverside. So that's kind of our ring. That's how we actually get into the system, and it's depending on where we're at in the city. And I'll show you here in a second, that depending on what tower we hit in order to get in. But we're well protected, man. We have a lot of coverage, a good amount of radio coverage in this city. That's never been a concern in the 10 or 11 years that we've been on this system now. If you see, I got a little graphic there, and that's our dispatcher there in the right side of that. And when she transmits, that tower that sits right outside City Hall here, right by the dispatch area, it's got a microwave on it. And it shoots a microwave beam, and this all happens within microseconds. I mean, it looks like it's a big route to go, but it happens faster than you can blink your eye. They transmit, it goes through the microwave on the tower right outside this building. It hits our water tower, and they call that a hop. So it basically hits that, hops, and we actually tie in with our dispatch center into the North Zone, old North Zone tower up there by the yellow building up there. That's the tower we hit in order to get through the system. And then depending on where anybody is in the city, the police, fire, and EMS, then that's the tower that it actually talks to find the closest tower to relay it to the car. So if I'm on the east side of town, most likely that signal will bounce around until it hits Worlds of Fun and then hits me over on the east side of town. But again, it happens so fast, it's faster than you can blink your eyes. So there's really no delay at all. But that's how it works. And then when anybody that has the equipment talks back, it actually goes back to the same route that it does. I could be actually standing in dispatch, and I could key my mic, and it's not talking to that console. It's actually going through a tower to another tower, over to North Zone, back to our water tower hop, back to the dispatch. So that's how that works, and it happens so fast. But it's so interesting, because that's how we can talk to somebody in Harrisonville if we want to. We could talk to them seamlessly, because that signal would bounce clear around the city. It's a big ring around the entire city. So we can talk to somebody up in St. Joe, because we can tie into the Platte County towers. We could talk to somebody in St. Joe, or we could key the mic and talk to somebody in Harrisonville very seamlessly. In fact, years ago when we first put the radio in, I talked on my portable microphone. I was almost to Osage Beach, and I was able to bounce back and talk to dispatch. That's with my portable radio. So I don't guarantee that coverage, but I can just say what we have in the city on portable radio, and especially our mobiles, which have more power, our coverage is fantastic, and we haven't regretted for a minute that we've actually gone into this system, as every other municipality around us has too. So let's have a quick overview of what the MARS system is. Kansas City maintains the entire system. They maintain all the towers, and they maintain the system. They actually, Kansas City PD, through our contract, maintains and updates our dispatch consoles. Now, when we did the $1.6 million radio project back in 2011, over $400,000 of that was for 3 consoles that we had. So that's a very expensive component to our radio system, is the dispatch consoles. And Kansas City actually helps maintain those, and they update them with all the software updates that it needs. And so that's something we really don't have to worry about. What we are responsible for is we have to purchase our own, what they call user equipment, which is the radios and the cars and the portable radios that we have. We have to buy our own and maintain our own user equipment. And then we have to, when I talked about that microwave and that hop, that's one way into the system. Another way would be if we decided to do fiber. We can get into the system using fiber, but that would be at our expense. And so any way that we actually get into the system, the microwave or the fiber, that's at our expense as well. We just have to make sure we get there. Gladstone pays Kansas City $14 per month per radio to be on the system. That's what we call a subscriber fee, and that actually helps them collect the money that they need to maintain the system, because maintaining the entire system is it's a big take on. And so the system is very robust, and it has a lot of fail-safes, and it maintains all of the software updates that need to be happening. So that $14 per radio per month, everybody that's on the system, actually, Liberty pays $14 a radio, Clay County pays $14 a radio, Riverside pays $1,400 a radio to be on the system. So roughly for us, with 156 radios on the systems, roughly $30,000 a year is what we pay. That comes out of PSST, because we knew, when we got into this, that would be an ongoing expense. Okay, so. What we have assigned to us, and they don't call them channels, because I always used to make the mistake when I said, what channels? How many channels do we have? And they would always correct you, because on a digital system, they're called talk groups, okay? So we have all these talk groups right here: police dispatch, TAC 1, TAC 2, fire dispatch, TAC 1, TAC 2. And see, if we go on a scene of like a tactical operation, or they actually have a working fire and they want to get off the dispatch channel, they go to one of those tactical frequencies. The station tones, like when they set off the tones to alert them for a call, that's on a talk group all of its own. So we actually reserve that one as well. Public Works has one that we reserve for them, but they've chose not to really be on the radio system too much, but it doesn't cost us anything to have the talk group there. Community Development uses their radios quite often. Parks and Rec, I think Justin will tell you that they use their radios quite often. We have Emergency Management one, and that's what GEMA would use to do storm spotting and stuff like that. They're on that one. And then we have 3 citywide channels that we just have. So I always would say, if we had another tornado come through town and take out the Home Depot area, and then, like it did before, back in 2002 or 1 or whatever, and it took out Carriage Hills, and it took out another area south of 64th Street, and then it did some damage down by Old Pike, we could have actually 3 scenes working, and we'd have the talk groups. We'd put one scene on Citywide 1, one on Citywide 2, and one on Citywide 3. So as you can see, we have a lot of talk groups, and we have we're not going to run out of space to talk on, and we don't really have to share anything with anybody. We have enough to take care of ourselves easily. All right, here's the big question. Here's the big thing. And so you'll hear me talk about encryption here, and let me tell you what encryption is. Encryption is a way that you secure your radio traffic by scrambling the signal. Okay, so if I have an encryption radio and I have it on, I actually can talk on that radio, and the encryption will scramble that signal. And then I have to have, on the other end, somebody has to have encryption in that radio as well, because that takes the signal, decode, again, in a fraction of a second. It decodes that signal, puts it back together, and then you get the digital, radio traffic, okay? So if I am on encryption and somebody does not have that encryption, they will not hear what I have to say. I can hear them. If they try talking to me without an encrypted radio, I can hear them just fine. They just won't be able to hear me because they don't have the means in the radio to descramble the signal that I've scrambled, okay? Right now, we have what they call DES encryption. At the time, it was kind of the middle of the road encryption, but reasonably priced at the time, and we thought that everybody thought that that was the highest level of encryption that we would actually need. But we were wrong, actually, and so the federal government has had the FBI, the ATF, and several of the other federal agencies join into this MARS system, but they have mandated that we have to switch to AES encryption, which is way more secure than DES. And so it is 11 years old. Some of the user equipment is aging, and so if they're going to do that, honestly, for us, it's a good time. I would rather have them do this than if we had radios that were 2 years old and we would have to actually put encryption back into these radios. We're kind of towards the end of our service life anyway. We probably could have squeezed a little more time out of them. But as of January 1st, 2022, Kansas City is switching all of their stuff and the entire MARS system over to AES encryption. Okay, so would we be able to talk to each other still without the AES encryption? Absolutely, we could. We could talk to each other. But Kansas City has also mandated that their police dispatch is also going to dispatch on with AES encryption. So come January 1st, 2022, all these people that have these apps on their phone that listen to Kansas City radio traffic, or all these people that went out and bought the high fancy trunked scanners so they could listen to Kansas City, are going to be sorely disappointed, because AES encryption, they do not give AES encryption to lay people if they're not on the system. So people are going to be really disappointed come January 1st, 2022. That said, Kansas City Fire, because they deal so much with PD, and the reason I think they're doing and they're dispatching on encryption, I get upset sometimes because I feel like we're encrypting our way out. Like this whole thing was brought on because of 9/11 and because agencies wouldn't be able to talk to each other when they have a mass scene like that. And now we kind of address that with this massive system, and I feel like sometimes that we're encrypting our way out of interoperability with other agencies. However, most agencies are actually going to AES encryption, and so it kind of I feel sorry for the smaller agencies that were late getting into the system, and they've got pretty new equipment, and they're not going to be able to. I mean, it's a very high expense for them to actually move into the AES. They have to have a radio that's actually capable of it, or else they have to replace probably perfectly good radios anyway. So that's the decision that we have to make right now. We could actually spend money, because some of our radios, not all of them, the police and the fire radios, actually not even the fire radios, the police radios have the ability to take on the extra AES key of encryption, but it's $500 and some a radio to actually flash upgrade it and add that key. And we have to ask ourselves, is it smart to actually put $500 into a radio that we may only get a year or two left out of anyway? And so we just thought we might as well go the entire, like we're close anyway, and PSST is there to help us stay within and modern in this system. And so I think we want to actually get in and just replace the radios. That being said, we have to make a decision ourselves whether we want to do this encryption as well. Do we want to encrypt our radio frequencies? Do we want to encrypt our police dispatch? Do we want to encrypt our fire dispatch? The same way Kansas City Fire, I've talked to Riverside, I've talked to Liberty, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to encrypt all the radio traffic. North Kansas City are going to encrypt all the radio traffic. So we would be about the only ones not doing it. That being said, right now, fire division radios don't have encryption because there was never any need for this super secret descrambling in the fire division radios. But now, with Kansas City Fire going fully encrypted, we don't have a choice but to actually add the AES encryption onto the fire radios. And then if we go, it just kind of piles on each other, because if we go to our dispatch channel being totally encrypted when we send out dispatch, then Parks and Rec, when they're over at the pool and they switch over to the dispatch like they're supposed to and say, I need an ambulance over here, or we need police over here, to hit dispatch, they're not going to be able to hear a reply back if they don't have any encryption. So we've actually priced everything out, and what we would do is we would encrypt all the city radios so they would have the AES encryption, and so everybody would be able to talk to everybody, and it would take any problems away from any of our interoperability problems, even outside the agency or even within, created by whether we go encrypted or not on our dispatch. So that said, that's an overview of the MARS system and kind of where we are right now as far as having to replace our radios, and we're a little under the gun here because we need to get it done by January 1st, 2022. So free for any questions if you have any.
Go ahead.
Bob, are the consoles in our dispatch now upgradable?
Yes, and actually they're upgradable, and Kansas City is upgrading those to AES and redoing the software on those, and that's free of charge. That is a huge reduction in the costs. You know, our cost isn't nearly what it would be had we had to mess with those dispatch consoles. So I'm glad we got a contract with Kansas City for the contract. But no, they'll be upgraded.
Go ahead.
Well, when I saw this was on the open study session agenda tonight, my first thought was, God, we just bought new radios. And I realized it was a long, long time ago. And I remember back what precipitated us getting those new radios when we had that tornado incident, and we discovered that a lot of the first responders from other jurisdictions we couldn't communicate with, which led us to that public safety sales tax getting passed so that we could be a part of that system. I didn't realize it's been a decade.
They're about 10 or 11 years old, yeah. And the radios still function, but I know Sean over in Fire especially, I mean, first of all, they don't even make the radio now that we have over in community development and Parks and Rec, because we bought a cheaper grade radio for them. They don't even support those anymore. They won't even work on them. We can't support the software on them. I can't even program those anymore because everything's out to date on them. So we're kind of on a wing and a prayer with those radios anyway. So yeah, we're 11 years old.
Was one of the authorized uses for that public safety sales tax. You know, I don't think it was just a one-time we upgrade the radios and walk away from it. So I think, you know, to the extent we have a revenue source, you know, and the people have voted to support this part of it, I think this is an easy decision.
When we went to the public to get their support in 2010 for that public safety sales tax campaign, that was a huge part of what we promised to the voters. And so I think that we're obligated to do this. I think we must do this. And it would be like putting $500 into a refrigerator that you might get for $800. That's kind of silly. You know, it's better, I think, to replace. So I'm fully on board with this decision. I think it's a great move.
And Bob, regarding the number 156, does that include the radios for Parks and Recreation, Community Development?
Yeah, all the radios that we purchase, and we pay the subscription fees out of PSST for all the stuff in Parks and Rec, because, I mean, it's all part of the radio system, and so those expenses with those radios come out of PSST because, and we knew, you're right, we knew it wasn't going to be a one-and-done deal. I mean, this was going to be an ongoing expense. The radios were going to need to be replaced. There's no sunset on the public safety sales tax, and so the money for that debt service is ongoing. So this is just the cycle, and, you know, I wish we had another year maybe, but, you know, they kind of forced our hand on this, but we'll make it through it. It's time for a change, and we can get pretty good. I mean, we're getting about $40,000 out of the radios that we have now on trade-in, so that's not too bad for radios that are out that old. So, and one of the things that we did is we bought radios before for police and fire that had, well, they were dual band, so we would be able to talk to Liberty and some of the Clay County, some of those people that hadn't gone to the MARS system. So it cost extra to have this dual band function, and then all of a sudden here comes Liberty and Clay County into the MARS system, so we don't use the dual band function on these radios anymore. So replacing all these radios and not making them dual band is a great savings as well. So
Bob, thank you.
Yeah.
It's very informative.
Mayor, as Assistant City Manager Bear said, we're on a bit of a timeline, so you can expect in the next 2 weeks to 30 days a financing plan that highlights exactly how we'll purchase the new radio system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I gave this presentation to the Code Board of Appeals. I went very detailed through the chapters. I am going to do the Cliff Notes version. I know Councilmember Spallo will be very appreciative of that.
Thank you.
As she sat in during the Code Board of Appeal. Part of the reason I'm jumping to the 21 codes, if you probably remember, not quite a year ago, maybe 16 months ago, I adopted the 2018 codes. We're coming up this year to do our renewal on our ISO. As you know, there's a fire ISO and a building ISO. Our building ISO also relates to what code cycles we are on. Being on the 18 code will probably keep us right where we're at now with our numbers. Jump to the 21 cycle could help us move up on that ISO rating. With that said, I've talked to our ISO representative. I've pushed back our meeting with him until January of next year so that we can get these adopted and in place. To go start, a lot of it, if you look through it, is repetition. Dealing with fees, violations, Code Board of Appeals. A lot of that stuff, when they cycle every 3 years, things change. Some things get pulled out of one chapter or section, moved to another one. Some stuff at one time will say something, the next year it says something different, so it doesn't fit with what we do, so I've got to change it, or it comes back to fit what we do, and I remove it. A lot of the Board of Appeals that they talk in here, I eliminated out of there because we have our own Code Board of Appeals, our own regulations on how that operates. A lot of that's taken out. Dealing with fees and all that, same thing. Violations, same thing. So I won't go through all of that stuff through my section. But if anything comes up, I missed something, you got a question, please stop me. One of the changes you may have noticed in the residential code portion of it, I made a change to and added an appendix which deals with 3D printing of buildings. Literally building a building in 3D. It's a machine they use and makes it out of concrete. If you really want to see a detail, Google 3D buildings. But it's pretty neat how it's done. I have not seen it done in the Midwest. It's being used throughout, but I stuck it in that way. If somebody wants to come here, I've got regulations covering. That's the only reason that was added in there. Several of the tables in there, you saw I had like about 3 tables completely marked out and 3 new tables. Basically same tables. They added a bunch of stuff and whatnot. In short, what one table is guidelines on how things are done and what's required here. Another one deals with fenestration, which is the U factor, which is technical, and I won't go into the whole deal. The other one deals with actually your R factors, your insulation that most people understand. Throughout the years, the energy code gets very, very tricky. So it's gotten stricter and stricter and stricter over the years. Back in '09, and typical construction was always R13 walls and R38 in your attic. Over time, they increased it to walls to being an R19 and your attics being an R48. I've kept it down to 2000. Most of the communities in the greater Kansas City area are all around the 2009, the R13 and the R36 in the attic. Not saying that people can't do more. Well, the big change came this year in that in attics, there is now requiring an R60. That's 2 foot of insulation. Not only is it not cost prohibitive here, you're not going to see your return on investment. You've got to do a bunch of sheeting across your rafters so it doesn't get down your soffits to affect your ventilation. Part of the reason they do that is our region is tied in with South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, and all that. Up there, they have much colder temperatures in the wintertime, and an R60, no problem. Here, it's just way too much. I've kept it at that R38, so we're still the same as we've always been over the years. Couple things that did come up. One of the things they changed is they required, if you ever change your furnace, hot water heater, you know they've always been, some of the older homes had the little brick chimneys and they vented up through those chimneys. Well, in the RC in 21, they're saying you can't do that anymore for any kind of hot water heater when you replace it or your furnace. I've modified that a little bit, so if you replace, it used to be in the 18 that if you replaced it with the same type furnace, same BTUs and all that, you could do it. 21 took that completely out of there. I went back to the 18, allowing if you don't upgrade or anything, you can still use that same. Otherwise, if you upgrade, you'll have to meet the new requirements for the venting. One of the changes they made in the 21 over the 18, in the 18 they allowed for commercial kitchens in homes. There's a lot of people that love to cook. A lot of them have them like those big commercial stoves, gas top, all that stuff. Well, in the 18 you could do that as long as it was installed for the manufacturer and it was designed by an engineer. 21 they took out commercial equipment in residential completely. I put it back to the 18, so if you want to still have it, as long as you have an engineer and it meets the manufacturer's requirements for that equipment, not a problem. One of the other things in the residential code that they did, they require arc fault throughout your house. Arc faults are, for lack of a better term, similar to a ground fault circuit interrupter. What they do is they detect arcs. The problem with an arc fault is your vacuum cleaner will trip it. So in the greater Kansas City area, I know Kansas City only requires it in the bedrooms. Other than that, nobody's really requiring it anywhere in the house. So I've kept that out of our code. Another addition they added in 21 is all your outlets in the basement, whether it be unfinished or finished, your outlets all had to be tied to a ground fault circuit interrupter. That adds a lot of expense. So your bedrooms, your family rooms, your pool rooms, and whatever requires. So I've modified that so that only the unfinished basement has to have your ground fault circuit interrupter. Finished areas won't, except if you have bathrooms or kitchen, sinks and all that, like you typically would in sinks. So I made that change in there. Made that modification also in the electrical code, so that in residential that's covered. In the energy conservation code, which I was talking about in the residential, I'm adopting the energy conservation code, just the commercial provisions. There's two sections. There's commercial and residential. In the IRC, they have provisions for residential energy that are the same as the energy code, so I don't adopt that portion. I just address it in the residential code, which I've already talked about. And then in the energy code, on the commercial, I've really made no changes from what's been there before. Most commercial projects are following all those guidelines anyway throughout the country. I'll jump over now to the plumbing code. In there, you saw there was a chart in there of dealing with all kinds of backflow assemblies. I've deleted that. Typically, I always kept changing. We have our own cross-connection control program here, have our own regulations dealing with cross-connection control that follow the state of Missouri's regulations. Therefore, I'd always modified that chart. So I finally just left it, and I just put a item in there that just basically says that cross-connection has to follow our regulations here in the city of Gladstone per chapter 300. One of the other changes we've made to the plumbing code, which we allowed this year, is PEX, polyethylene cross-link. Basically, you've seen it's the blue and red pipe, you see. A lot less expensive. You can hardly find copper in a hardware store anymore. We're allowing it from the main all the way to the meter into the house. The only option we're having to do in the main is we've got to put a couple of unit struts in there so the meter can be secured so it doesn't flop around in there because there's no rigid pipe there. The other thing we're requiring is tracer wire on the PEX so that it can be tapped, so it can be traced so we know where it's at in the ground. Under property maintenance, most of that I deleted dealt with appeals board, so nothing really there to be changed. Pretty much following what we did the last time, which I think council's pretty much aware of how we're handling our property maintenance. Swimming pool spa, same thing on the appeals. That's the Cliff Notes version of the Cliff Notes. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, Mayor, but I just want to say it's a tremendous amount of information, and just an appreciation for Alan and his knowledge of this. Our city is very lucky to have someone of his caliber and to keep our residents safe. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Good job, Tina.
Mayor.
Ellen, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, the next step will be the codes will sit on public review in the city clerk's office for about 90 days, and then there'll be an ordinance for you to consider adoption of the new building codes.
And that'll probably be around November.
Thank you.
My goal is to make it November, and then its effective date would be the 1st of January 2022. I do have one more chapter, chapter 2400. This one I'll give you a little more than cliff notes on this, because this is our special events regulations. Over the years, we've had businesses that wanted to have events outside, some live music, some other entertainment outside. With the COVID-19, it got a little bit more prominent because they couldn't have all the people inside, so they wanted to have outside because you can do a little more outside, get some spreading on it. So we were seeing a lot more special events come about, particularly outside. Primarily, at least with three major businesses here in town. So what I've done is I've added a Type 6 special event, and I'll kind of go through it. There are a couple other modifications in there. I just tweaked some wording and a few grammar things I missed last time through. I did add a definition of entertainment, and basically entertainment is an event, performance, or activity designed to entertain others. Just a standard definition. Now, I did add, as part of examples of special events, I did add entertainment to that. I also added a definition for a temporary special event structure. We did have a business who was doing these that wanted a tent outside. So on days that the weather was a little less inclement, like mist or whatnot, they had some protection, or people could at least sit out there without getting rained on. Basically, any temporary ground-supported structure, platform, stage scaffolding, or rigging, canopy, tower supporting audio, visual effects, equipment, or similar structures not regulated within scope of the International Building Code. Now to get to the meat, Type 6 special event. Type 6 special event is for outdoor commercial events. That is a commercial event activity not conducted in an enclosed building or regular place of business, but conducted on the premises of said business. Such entertainment activities must be associated with the ongoing primary purpose of the building. Basically, your restaurants and grills and bars, the live entertainment, that's part of their ongoing activities, just kind of moving outside. Some winter times they'll have it indoors, but they like to have it outdoors this summer. So that kind of fits in that requirement there. With that, the number and timing I've modified. As you know, Type 4 is our cities, and that is all done totally differently and everything. Now, Type 6 special event, typically all our current special events, except for the Type 4, are good for 30 days. Well, one of the in talking to the businesses, and I talked, was with Tortilla Flats, Stone Canyon, and the Hideout were the three main ones that have had entertainment and have had questions about our current special event permit dealing with live entertainment. So what typically they're doing is they're 1 month, they're only good 3 a year. So they got 90 days. Well, sometimes they may do an event where they only have one band that month. So that, they've spent 1 month and that's all they get. So they're shortchanged to the way they felt anyway. So what I've done is I made their Type 6 will be where in a special event permit is good for 90 days. Now, that being said, if a business pulls, like let's say Stone Canyon wants to have a special event permit, they get their 90-day permit. They can do that. They can have their special events, but they can only have up to 3 per week. So they're not having it every night of the week. So we do, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Friday, whatever during that week, but only 3 times during the week. I've talked with the 3 businesses I mentioned. They are all ecstatic about this. They have no problem with it. They don't plan. None of them have plans on doing it every night of the week. One, they can't afford it. 2, they just, business doesn't always preclude during the week that you have that much many people there. They would be allowed 3 of those 90-day permits. So that's basically, 9 months out of the year. Primarily, when I looked at it, I was thinking, okay, you're late November, December, January, February months. They're typically not going to do outdoor activities. The weather's just getting cold. And a lot of them won't have outdoor activities, and most of them I talk to don't want to do activities outdoor. Most of them are spring, summer, and the fall on it. All right. One of the things I did add is all of these activities do need to abide by Title II, Chapter 120, which is our noise regulations. So after 10 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then also they have, have to play to the audience, not playing for the whole city. So we've only had an issue one time. I spoke with the manager, and that band has not played at that establishment since. So also they need to meet with our Chapter 600 fire prevention regulations, especially as it pertains to the temporary structures. Our fire marshal inspection, make sure they meet all the requirements and that they're, using it properly. They're not hanging stuff out of them and things like that. So the only exception to that would be our Type 4 special event when we have a lot of our activities going on with our Type 4, primarily Blues Fest, Glad Fest. And that concludes my presentation on Chapter 2400 special events. Are there any questions?
I do. So, Alan, when you pull a permit, how much is you pull it for 90 days? Yes? And then how much does that cost?
It's $100. I did not change the fee for the permit.
And so it just extends it now. It used to be $100 for just...
Yes, the intent from that aspect was they're bringing in entertainment for them. Hopefully we're getting residents and outside residents coming, seeing some tax dollar increase.
Okay, thank you.
I would just comment that this was also presented to Board of Zoning Adjustment last week, and they recommended approval of it to us. So that's all I have.
I have one. Still on the premises, when you come outside on the premises, now is there any provisions made if they don't actually own that premise, if they're just leasing the spot?
Yes, that would be correct. Like the hideout, they don't own the premise, but they're leasing it, so they have the rights and access to that premise. But it would be out. They use it, and it's outside in front of them. It's not like they're having it all the way up by the front, North Oak, in front of a different business.
Right.
Yeah.
Ellen, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take a 2-minute break, and we'll start at 7:30. Joe, may I get the names of the individuals from 10906? Here we go. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday, July 26th, 2021 regular meeting of the Gladstone City Council. Call this meeting to order, and I'd like to ask our Madam Clerk if you'll call the roll for officers.
Councilmember Spallo. Here. Councilman Frisbee.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Here.
Mayor Mellons.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to ask you to please join me if you have. We do not have any caps, garrisons on. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Your Honor, the colors of President.
Post the colors.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to thank VFW 10906. That was Joe Lyles, Jim Zimmerman, Charlie Cram, and Stan Stoner. Item 4 on the agenda this evening is the review of the agenda and then asking our city council members if there's anybody who wishes to make a change to tonight's agenda. The agenda will stand as it's presented. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 12, 2021 closed City Council meeting. May I have a motion?
Mayor Mellons.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the July 12th, 2021 closed City Council meeting minutes.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all of those in favor of approving the July 12, 2021 closed City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The minutes are hereby approved. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the July 12, 2021 regular City Council meeting.
Mayor Mellons.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the July 12th, 2021 regular City Council meeting minutes.
Second?
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor of approving the July 12, 2021 regular City Council meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The minutes are hereby approved. Now we move into the communications from our audience. Members of the audience, the public, are invited to speak about any topic that's not on tonight's agenda. When speaking, we ask you to please step to the podium, state your name, address for the record, and then limit your comments to 5 minutes, please. Evening, John.
John Bledsoe. I want to pass these out, so I mean, pictures last 1,000 words or something. Simple map, simple map of 676 Terrace, the Mosby Bateman Cave, and the green indicates from out here this side.
Ruth, would you like one?
There's an extra one.
Yes, yeah.
All right, you ready?
John,
I'm John Bledsoe, 206 Northeast 76 Terrace. I'm here once again to review the water flood issue on 76 Terrace into the Bateman Mosby Cave. According to an engineer report, there's 250 acres or surrounding area that drains through 5 yards on 76 Terrace, mine's one, before entering the cave property. With the continuing trash impediment that falls into the cave, its absorption rate cannot handle the water flow in the future. Simple as that. A 2-inch rain over 250 acres is 12 million gallons. Okay. I made a hand drawing and I showed you all that. And the green part of that indicates my opinion of how to fix the problem to divert the water from the cave and divert it to the next creek to the south. Oh, where the new project's going. Still all on city property, by the way, as it still leaches down to the area basin on city property where the park is. But by doing all that, no matter what the cost is, here's the thing. No more water in the cave, no more extortion money. Now, if any of you have followed any of this, you know who I'm talking about and what I just said. No more water in the cave, no more extortion money. It just seems like pretty simple observations to me. Now, that's number one. Now we got to talk about one more thing, and this one's way more serious. This same water, I don't know if any of you ever go down that street. Mr. Ralph Doherty at 201, the last house on the right, has retained me to do, I call it, do me a study for the feasibility of putting a pipe in his yard before the rapid erosion creates a sudden catastrophic foundation failure of his house. The torrent of water is a 6-foot by 20-foot ditch at 20 miles an hour. It's frightful. And it is only 15 feet from his house. I mean, just absolutely, yeah, very dangerous. The neighbor next door already has a 5-foot pipe. And if you stayed with the same 5-foot pipe of the neighbors, and that was kosher, which I don't think is the rightest answer, but it's feasible, you're looking at $36,000 to $40,000 to correct Mr. Duarte's 120-foot piece of property. Now, I can see, you know, that's quite a bit of money. But here's the thing. 20 years ago, I got a document that says right here, the city, with the city's pre-existing agreement to maintain this easement of Mr. Doherty's property, the petition, he is petitioning the city full sponsor of this project. In other words, if you guys don't get off your ass and fix this and his house falls in the creek, and it's that far. Anybody drive down the street, you don't have to get out your car. You don't have to get out your car, you know, you see it, whoop, 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 it's right there. Yeah, absolutely frightening in a rain of any kind. Everybody else's ditch, all over the city, including all these Burns and Black and Beach reports, 9 out of 10 of them, 9 out of 10 of them, I know they might be ugly and they're running water, but they're at the back edge of this guy's property. They're at the back edge of this guy's property. This is a monster ditch and it's running right this far from that man's house.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that's here in the audience that would like to speak? Jim?
Good evening. My name is Jim Oldebecken. I live at 7402 North Highland. I'm here tonight to talk about, for a few minutes, to talk about sunshine. This is something that is a wonderful law that we have in our state and really all across the nation. We have Freedom of Information Act at the federal level, and we have Sunshine, the Sunshine Law here in Missouri, which gives citizens, it ensures that the citizens have a pathway to be involved in government, on meetings, for public meetings to be available with proper notice, and then also for records, for public records. If we look at the name public records, what do they belong to? Us. And I want to start with a very sincere observation, which is I'm very, very pleased and proud of how this city handles follow-up on requests like that. It is timely, it is professional, it is reliable. And I have made many requests of the city. This is very encouraging to me because over the last 2 years that I have been attending, about half or more of the city council meetings, there have been very few citizens here. I want to stand up and cheer. Let's cheer ourselves. All right. I really like what Presiding Commissioner of Clay County, Jerry Nolte, gave as his definition, working definition of democracy, which is citizens being informed and involved in their government. And it's really the way for every city, every government entity to improve. If they continue to improve in the area of that connecting point with citizens, we can't make them come here, but let us all keep trying. Individually through our own networks, our own organizations, we have to have your back. And I know it would probably be meaningful to me if I were in your chair, if there was a very active and comprehensive involvement from the community. And there's nothing like being here in person. And I can see the importance of citizens being involved and informed in their government because of a really unusual circumstance that we've been in for the last year, almost 2 years, where one of our citizens made financial demands of our city on no uncertain terms related to a small 2-acre property, which he indicated had too much stormwater, rainwater, coming onto his property and into a hole in the ground, cave hole in the ground. I just couldn't get over the things I heard from that gentleman, but what really got to me is there was no one else here. It was me and him for a couple meetings. And I know the city can't comment back, but I just can't get along with the thought that citizens can get away with treating our city council like a punching bag and making demands and making statements that, well, from my research using your documents, public records, I found virtually no support for the claims I heard in those meetings. And I want to conclude my involvement. I've spoken a few times about this circumstance, this gentleman, and I really don't want to do this anymore. I spent over a year on this. A year ago, the demand was $1.8 million for a property he didn't even live on. And then in January, he filed a suit against the city. It went up 83 times that initial amount, $150 million. And that's something citizens want to know about. Because if you work the math on it, that works out to over $5,000 per citizen for a community of 27,500 people. About $13,000 per residence, apartment rented or a home. So I'm concluding my work here because I've been working on a tool, a resource that I've developed just 2 times previously, but it is a resource for citizens where it's an aggregation of the documents. So we have Mr. Bateman's comments here. I got them off in the minutes. And he mentioned a lot of facts and reports. And then I have all the facts and reports. And this is a tool. So it's something I wish to make available to the city, any citizens that are interested in the community. I don't know that I'll have any takers, but it's I think it could be a useful tool for citizens being able to be a part of their city. And it concerns me that this happened because I don't see any merit in this demand whatsoever. I mean, I understand flooding problems. My childhood home was flooded twice. And we had a connected sanitary sewer and storm sewer in my neighborhood. That was an issue. but we didn't demand money. I will cover, I'll cover a few things that are in here, just because I want on the record. How am I doing on time?
A couple of minutes.
Okay. But I want to say something, and really what I'm saying here, I want citizens to hear, but I'm addressing you. This isn't hard work to do. If we have some business here, or we have a complaint or whatever, and it catches your attention, it's not hard to request the documents. You get them in 3 days, or you please find out when you'll get them. And the biggest one I got was the Black and Beach report that Mr. Bateman quoted quite a bit. That was fascinating to read that. I mean, that's an impressive, massive effort to take care of our citizens. Nature makes it rain, and when it hits the ground, it goes with gravity. And you have 10-year floods, 50-year floods, 100-year floods. But this tool, I think, helps put things in perspective, and I want to share just a few parts of it. And when I'm done compiling this, I'm almost done. There's just a few documents I'm waiting on. I'll give it to the city for you to use for internally or with citizens. But I would like to cover a few points. I do encourage citizens to get Bateman versus Gladstone. It's downloadable on the Clay County Court website. I just have to use a few quotes from this gentleman. He claims the city pumps water onto his property, that Altis pumps water. That is just so ridiculous. Much of his comments were about the citizens on that street, the residences that Mr. Bledsoe mentioned. There's many references in the minutes during his public comments about the citizens and their issues. He doesn't even live on the street. In fact, he's going up and down, I guess, talking about a class action suit against our city and against all the other businesses and homes that, quote, dump their water into his cave. It just doesn't make sense. You know, I didn't want to go further on that. They're here. And a couple other things. 150 million is an interesting number. Of all the CEOs in the United States, only Google Alphabet makes more in a salary than 150 million. There's only one athlete in the world, I find, that gets a salary bigger than 150 million. Not even LeBron James. As far as cities in the United States, I've looked at their public record. Their average payouts and litigation for claims for damages, only 2 cities have numbers higher than 150 million. That's Chicago and New York. And that's the whole budget. That's for a whole year for all of their citizens. There is a reference, he made reference to a survey of his cave, and I have the report.
Jim, do you want to move to concluding comments?
Sure.
Okay.
Let us get better, and let us all work together, we're all citizens, on mentoring, coaching, encouraging other citizens to be involved actively. And I know you do a great job of supporting those that do. I'd like to see us continue with that. Thank you.
Jim, thank you. Well, now we're going to move to the communications from our city council, and we'll start with Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to offer my sincere wishes to you for a very happy birthday today.
And, it's a great place to be.
And thank you for sharing your day with us.
Thank you. Anything?
That's it.
Councilmember Spallo.
No comments, Mayor.
Councilmember Frisbee.
No comments.
Nothing, Mayor.
Oh my gosh. No comments from me. Mr. City Manager Scott.
Mayor, thank you very much, and members of the council, good evening. I do have a few things to talk about, and it focuses on COVID-19, specifically the Delta variant. COVID has not disappeared. I want everybody to take note of that, and as we go about our normal activities day to day without masks and without occupancy restrictions and all those things we came to learn about over the last 18 months or so, we need to be aware that COVID-19 does continue to exist. Only 41% of Clay County residents have been vaccinated. The vaccine is a deterrent to COVID-19 and lessens the symptoms. There's been a 60% increase in the number of cases reported to Clay County in the last 30 days, so that's a significant amount. I mean, that rivals peak month-to-month increases when we were in the midst of COVID. And about 32 people from Gladstone went to the hospital this last week with COVID-like symptoms. That doesn't mean they had COVID, it just means they had symptoms that replicate COVID. So my only comment is, if you know someone who would like a vaccine, please help them do that. You can do that at our website, find a place. You can do that at Hy-Vee, you can do that at CVS, you can do that at Clay County Public Health Center. There's lots of places to do that. So there shouldn't be anybody who wants a variant vaccine that hasn't been able to get one yet, and we encourage those that haven't and want to go ahead and make that leap. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move now into a public hearing, and the subject is going to be the final development plan and zoning approval for the property located at 7506 North Oak Traffic Way and 7510 North Oak Traffic Way, and then parcel 1360000102200. And during the public hearing, we're going to first hear from staff, then followed by those who are in favor of the application, then by those who would oppose the application. We ask that when you speak, please state your name, your address when you come to the podium. And at this time, we'll open the public hearing, and we'll start with Austin.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The applicant, Cardinal Crest KC, is proposing a mixed-use development at 7506, 7508, 7510 North Oak Traffic Way, and an undeveloped parcel ending in 2200. This location is approximately at the block of 76th Street to the south and west of North Oak Traffic Way. The development site consists of 4 separate parcels currently owned by the Ryan family, Beverly Sue Ryan, Clayton and Shirley McCulloch, and JRKC Holdings, LLC. With a combination of all 4 parcels, there is approximately 7.53 acres of land. The proposed mixed-use project includes the construction of a 216-unit luxury-style apartment complex with a community amenities including a pool, clubhouse, fitness center, as well as commercial retail and office space adjacent to North Oak Traffic Way. The complex consists of 5 separate buildings consisting of 4 floors. The development offers 87 one-bedroom apartments and 129 two-bedroom apartments. The commercial aspect of this project is 9,000 square feet and will have approximately 31 dedicated parking spaces. A total of 325 parking spaces will serve the entire development. Tim Nebergall, City Engineer and Director of Public Works, has been working with the Cardinal Crest team to address adequate stormwater detention for this site. In order to meet stormwater requirements and development criteria, Anderson Engineering is proposing an underground detention basin with 3 Bio Retention Basins installed on the site. Given the size and magnitude of this project, City staff engaged Call Valley Engineering to conduct a third-party review of the stormwater study submitted to City staff. In summary, Call Valley Engineering agrees with the stormwater study submitted by the development team and that the proposed stormwater system has the capacity to mitigate increases in runoff as a whole and at an individual uncontrolled releases. City staff agrees with Anderson Engineering Incorporated and Call Valley Engineering that runoff from this project flows to the south, and the stormwater system that is proposed is more than adequate to accommodate this development site. The comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2008 by the Planning Commission and City Council identifies this area of the North Oak Corridor as a location for redevelopment into a mixed-use community. This proposed mixed-use project complies and aligns with our current comprehensive plan for future redevelopment of this corridor. City staff recommends that the following conditions be considered if the City Council chooses to approve this project request. Number 1, all development signage shall comply with approved city standards. Number 2, all manicured grass and landscape areas shall be irrigated and maintained in perpetuity. Number 3, tractor trailers shall not be parked or stored overnight. Storage containers shall not be stored on site unless as part of a valid building permit. Number 4, disabled vehicles shall not be stored on site. Number 5, no items shall be stored on resident balconies. Number 6, residents of the development shall not store personal or company trailers on the development site. Number 7, provide outdoor bike racks within a development area to serve residents of the development. Number 8, entry points of buildings shall be secured 24 hours, 7 days of the week, year-round. Number 9, dumpster and storage areas shall be enclosed on 4 sides with materials consistent with the primary building and adequately screened from public view. Trash service shall be scheduled between the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Number 10, a fire sprinkler system shall be installed and comply with the 2018 International Fire Code standards. The developers of this project have agreed to all conditions. City staff recommends that the request be approved contingent upon the conditions listed above. At the Tuesday, July 6th Planning Commission, 3 different neighbors expressed concerns with ongoing stormwater erosion issues on their property. The developers of this project have agreed to work with the city on addressing those neighbors' concerns by stabilizing the bank and slowing erosion. Engineers for this project will work with Director Nebergall to determine what the best strategy is to help solve those erosion issues. These stormwater improvements will be coordinated with construction on the development site if approved by the City Council, as there will likely be some cost savings due to the economies of scale. City staff also spoke with a representative from the North Kansas City School District, and if this project develops, a school bus will pick children up from the development site. The Planning Commission voted unanimously in favor of this project. The final vote was 8 yeses and 0 nos. This proposed project requires the following actions: rezone the individual parcels from commercial to mixed use, and approve the proposed site plan for the mixed-use development. Joe Christensen and Matt Hendrickson, who are the developers of this project, they're in the audience tonight, and they would like to make a presentation. Thank you, Mayor, and that is all.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Matt and Joe, please come to the podium.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we are very excited to present this community that we've been working on. Like Austin had said, it's been an endeavor. We actually started this about a year ago, so it's been through the process, at least on our side, vetting things and making sure that we were, crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So, but to get going first, I'd like to just give you a little bit of insight on who Cardinal Crest is. Primarily, we started as a custom home builder in the Northland. We have built a little over 130 homes across the 152 corridor. Myself and the other principal, Adam Schaefer, he's not in attendance tonight, both live in the Northland and are very familiar with all the areas around this 152 corridor. A couple years ago, with just the synergy of building custom homes, we got into more commercial development around the Northland and different areas of KCMO, Parkville, and just that 152 corridor, and worked on different development projects and commercial projects. And, from the great work that Gladstone has done in the city, I over the last 10 years, have often found myself being a patron of the services of Gladstone and different things down here. And funny enough, with the development of Linden Square, I found myself even more often being down here. And that's kind of what brought us here today, ultimately, is that we were patrons of the new restaurants here, the different services, and kind of kept finding ourselves down in this area and started to look around at different opportunities. And that opportunity that we have found is what we wanted to present to you today, this community that we have been working on developing that we're calling Parkside at Hobby Hill. and that is obviously because it's adjacent, well, not adjacent, but close by that awesome park that I've also, tried my luck at Frisbee golf a couple times. Now I'm no good, but it's definitely fun. But as you can see here, these are the 4 parcels that we are wanting to combine today. Well, looks like some zooming issues happened with that, but that doesn't quite translate like I wanted it to. But let me see if I can highlight with my shakiness here. See this parcel here, and then these 2 parcels. The PowerPoint didn't translate. Maybe it's from Mac to. But there's these 4 parcels, and then you can see they're zoned. Parcel 1, I can talk a little louder maybe. Parcel 1 is zone ag. Parcel 2, that's going to be residential, and then 3 and 4 that face North Oak there are zone commercial right now. So, and then I also wanted to point out, because I think what's kind of interesting and what we've often, this kind of had a very organic kind of growing of this project. We started with 1 parcel and kind of started vetting it out, and as we looked into different parcels, we saw the different opportunities to grow this project to be a really, really substantial community. And the other thing that's interesting is the other parcels that are marketing right now for sale. So that's one highlighted right there, then the other one below here. And there's, as you might know, there's some other parcels around here that are also vacant, which I think is just fun to point out that it's got opportunity for growth here for a really cool community beyond from what we're presenting as well. So that didn't really translate. Sorry about that. So this view here just shows you a view from the Aldi Shopping Center. You can look here, and then we've kind of superimposed what this building would be, a 4-story apartment building with enclosed corridor, as Austin said, secured entrances and whatnot. So that's that view right there. Now this is the view from North Oak, and kind of superimposed where that commercial space would be down there with apartments above that. So, okay, let's see. So this, I'm sorry, this PowerPoint really didn't work out as well. What this is highlighting is that there's one connected building, this right here, connected building that connects to this building here, and there's an amenity center in the middle. That building is all connected, and I'll show you some other images that will show that. But the real, that's this building, and then there's these 3 buildings over here. But the real highlight of this slide, sorry if I'm lasering anybody as I did that, that's a little low there, is that it's an amenity-rich community. And that's what we're really going for, is that it's 200-plus apartments, but with lots of amenities that really create that community feel. So let's go through here. These are those other buildings, 2 other buildings, and then that last one over here is the one that faces North Oak. So this would be, let me just back up so you can show that this, actually I think my next slide does. So this is the front entrance and the amenity center, and you can see that little superimposed guy with that red funnel. That's looking at that area. So his back would be towards Aldi's. And you can see a really good entrance, something that you can easily call home, I think, that welcomes you, kind of this boutique, in the sense, this kind of, I would say, hotel feel in the sense. On the back side of the amenities, this is what it would be the other side. So if you walk through the amenity center, you're going to have a pool, there's going to be a coffee bar, exercise area, different little things in that. So that's that. If you're looking at like the retention basins, or at the parking lot looking that way. So, all right, so let's go a little bit more into kind of, well, I think I apologize for this. So what this is highlighting is we have elected to sequence this project in 2 different stages. Stage 1 is everywhere poorly you can see these red boxes. So this is stage 1, which would be 140 units plus the amenity center. So that's stage 1, and that would, stage 2 is all these blue, so stage 2 would be this building 3, 4, and 5 here. Stage 1, as you can see in there, how I highlight is 140 units. Stage 2 would be 80 apartment units, and then 9,000 square foot of retail space. Well, sorry, you're blocking that one. So we had in stage 1, we would plan construction start around the early winter, late fall of 2001, and we would have lease up. We would start in quarter 2 of 2023, and then construction start on stage 2 on quarter 4 of 2023. All right, so this is going to talk a little bit about access. So we would have an all-access drive off where Aldi's is right there, and then we'd again another all-access drive in this parcel that's right below the Christian Brothers Roofing right here. And then we have one more access point that would be a right in and right out below that. So 3 entrances there. And this was derived from the traffic study that we had done. And then we wanted to highlight about the stormwater. So the first one, let me go back here. There is, if the council members have an actual print off of this, you can see some little kind of like octagon little pictures right here. That is underground stormwater retention basins, and then we've got above ground dry basins, 3 of them right here. That's this 1, 2, and 3. This is the lowest one, and they would fill into each other, and you can see here, and ultimately exit out. And those are dry basins, so water goes out of them. They don't pool water for very long, so it's not a retention pond. But and those would be fenced. This whole back, just because of the grading, this whole back wall, there's a retaining wall back here, and this would be fenced, and we'd have, a green fence, as we would call it, if you will, of landscape and different things to kind of beautify this area as well. Okay, so this slide, a little bit of just like highlighting some of the finishes. I think this plays off a little bit of what the city's already started, approved and developed with Linden Square. It's a mix of masonry, different types of siding, and creating interest with colors and different textures, trying to make something that fits in the community but has a little bit of a modern aesthetic as well. As far as ownership, Cardinal Crest, ourselves, we are the developers, contractors, and would be the asset manager. We are the managing partner of this development, so we not only are building and developing it, but we will retain ownership in the long term of this. And then the limited other partners and capital investors, we have 5 of them. 80% of them are Northlanders, which I think is unique and pretty cool. You don't find that very often in development. I would say even just around the KCMO Metro in general. We get a lot of influx of outside investors loving the Midwest opportunities. But we're here, and we're here to stay, so that's pretty fun. And our financial partner is First Missouri Bank, which, if you're familiar with them, Dave Johnson, one of the board members, has taken an interest in this project himself, and he's given some guidance on it, and he's on the board of First Missouri, which I know he's a prior Gladstone resident himself. So just timeline, wanted to kind of highlight some of the things that have already happened. June 7th, city submission. We've had a public hearing. July 16th, we had the planning commission, and then we find ourselves today. I just kind of want to give you an overview of what the things that we've got going on after this meeting, seeing that this is approved. We've got architectural, civil, and MEP work still to do, replatting, plan submission, construction start, and then complete of stage 1. But that is all my presentation.
And I have to ask, are you Matt or Joe?
Sorry, I did not say my name. I'm Joe Christensen.
Okay, wonderful.
I apologize. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. For our city council members, while Joe is here at the podium, do you have questions in regards to him?
Go ahead, Jean. I'm still a little confused about the staging piece of it. if you could just walk through that again?
Yes. So we have elected to split the project into 2 different stages. A lot of that the project as a whole must be completed in both those stages. The reason why is because, in a sense, we're front-loading the project with the amount of amenities. This is amenity-rich community in of itself. So in the first stage, we are building out all the amenities. And then the idea is that after we get about 90% occupied in stage 1, then we'll start stage 2. It really, for us, both have to be completed for this project to be a successful project. A lot of it is taking it down in sequences like that because of the project size in general.
So stage 1, if my notes serve me correct, is 140 units and the amenity center.
Correct.
And so then stage 2 would be the commercial fronting North Oak?
Yes, and the 2, I'm sorry, the presentation wasn't clear on that with the little blue boxes, but there was these blue boxes on the presentation. So it has 80 units on the second stage. There's 2 buildings that would be west, if I'm correct, west of the first stage. So those 2 buildings, and then the building that has a 9,000 square foot of commercial and additional units above that as well.
So is there any risk at all that one stage would be built and then you'd be one and done?
It doesn't make sense financially as a developer to do just one stage, so if that answers your question. For us, the risk would be we need stage 2 to happen. Honestly, a lot of it is construction sequencing in general. You don't have the manpower to build this size of square footage all at one time. So it's sequenced no matter what, and there's some efficiencies with that, raising a building at a time.
And so what triggers the start of stage 2? It sounded like there was some percentage of occupancy.
We want to see some occupancy in stage 1 until, and we see, that would, as it was shown on the slide, about 6 to 8 months from completion of stage 1, then we would start stage 2. It should be noted that we will have to start in architectural drawings, submitting and of those different buildings, a lot sooner than we'll start. So there'll be a sizable investment already in stage 2, and that's kind of where I'm going. That we're going to be putting in so much work in the stage 2 already that it doesn't make sense not to do it. We're going to be already there.
I just want to interject as well. Part of the sequencing and logistics as we're approaching this is to time a spring lease up. In the leasing world, the spring season, the summer months are most successful. And if we were to continue at what may seem a similar rhythm and cadence as we're going through stage 1, it would time it on the back end to hit in a non-spring summer lease-up scenario. And so we view the pause beneficial for construction reasons, lease-up reasons, as well as some leveraging of an asset already completed.
Patrick?
Matt, I'm sorry.
Matt.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful.
So does if stage 1 begins in, depending on approval, if it were to begin, you're saying in fall or now, fall, and then when would it likely be finished, construction-wise? Stage 1.
Quarter 2 of 2023.
For stage 1?
Yes.
Stage 1.
Correct.
So,
okay. Construction starting in fourth quarter of this year, 2021.
Okay.
About 16, 18 months from when it starts.
Okay. I think that's it for me right this second.
Okay, Joe, you've had conversations with Director Nebregal, our Public Works Director. You've had conversations with homeowners there. Share with us what has been decided in regards to stabilizing the bank of the creek that runs down through there. And then I want to come back and ask a question in regards to the Bio Retention Basins.
I'll try to take a swing at that first. So the developers, Mr. Nevergall and I, we were on a Zoom earlier this week, and Mr. Nevergall has been out at the site, and the goal is to slow down erosion back there, we think, with some rock and some other ideas that we have. I can't say that the plan is fully solidified yet until the engineers for the developers and Mr. Nevergall kind of converse on what that strategy may be, but we are certainly committed to helping those neighbors back there.
Okay, and Joe, you're agreeable, if you want to stabilize that bank, it's going to be some financial responsibility there. Is it going to be a joint venture between city and the developer?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about the Bio Retention Basins. I had an opportunity to be with one of the property owners today, and one of the questions that came up was maintenance of those detention basins. Are you willing to consider, as one of the recommended conditions, maintenance of the Bio Retention Basins in perpetuity?
Well, so they are dry basins, so they don't hold water like that. And yes, we plan on, as part of the development project, I would say yes. That's what, those basins need to be maintained. There are trash catches around there. They need to be weeded around. They'll be common, just like maintaining the development itself. Yes, we will have to maintain those because those will be from stormwater that comes from our community.
Any other comments? All right. Joe, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What we'll move on to now, is there anyone that would like to speak in addition to Joe and Matt in favor of the application? Yes, sir. If you'll step to the podium, state your name, address, please.
My name is Scott Horstman. My address is 7508 North Oak Traffic Way, 7514 North Oak Traffic Way. I own 2 properties there on North Oak. It actually came up in Joe's discussion here. We have been, in the last several years, doing roofing projects for major contractors throughout the city, and I saw the result of not planning ahead. I really respect Joe's approach to the way he's staging this process. It seemed to be a concern for one of the city council members, or just clarification might have been the point. But I fully respect that because I've seen what chaos can happen on huge projects. I've seen it firsthand, and I do not want to see that next door. So I am fully supportive of this project, and what he's saying is he's putting everything on the property that's going to draw people, first off. So why wouldn't he finish? He's already done the investment. Now let's get some more revenue, phase 2, with more residents to enjoy those amenities that he's already put on the property. Plus, then he's also going to be, at that point, adding retail space from what I saw right there on North Oak, which creates a better tax base for the city, which helps all of us out. So it just seemed like a pretty wise, common sense approach. I understand, Councilwoman, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
More.
I understand your questions and your concerns with that. Like, are you just going to stop and then go off and leave us? From my estimation, that'd be a foolish thing to do, and I don't see any foolish people here in that group of gentlemen that have come to visit us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, we're going to move on to, is there anyone that is in the audience this evening that would like to speak in opposition to the application, or would have maybe specific questions that they would address then to the developers?
John Bledsoe again. Y'all had that map that I drew you. You see where I was suggesting that in order to fix the cave problem, all the water's got to go over in his neighborhood and add on to the erosion problem on that same bank. Except now we're adding, in a hard rain, we're adding 12 million gallons a day more water. That's a lot of water. It's still going to be the way it has to happen because caves can't handle it in the future. But the engineer better figure out we're going to have more than just a couple of rocks up against that bank because there's a lot more water getting ready to come down there than there was going to the window. Have a nice night.
Thank you, John.
a lot more water. And you can't stop it. You gotta fix the cave, you can't let that guy keep raping you like he's doing. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Good evening.
Yes, my name is Bill Endress, and I live at 106 Northeast 74th Terrace. My property butts up against this proposed addition, and I've got some questions for the developers. One of them is this retention tank that you're going to put on the property. I understand it's got holes in it so where the water seeps into the ground. Is there any provisions for in the future to inspect that tank? Because over time, that sucker's going to start filling up with sediment and trash, and the more trash and sediment it collects, the less water it's going to retain. And when that happens, then the water's going to go to your retention basins. And my second question was, you show that these 3 retention basins exit your property to the southwest corner. That property is not owned by you. Is there any provisions to ensure that the existing drainage that is there now doesn't become a gully that we have experienced that has separated me from the back part of my property already? I've got like the gentleman said, I've got a ditch in my backyard that I can stand in and you couldn't see me. And I'm 6'2". I'd also like to take this time to thank the mayor for coming by to take a look at it, to actually see what I'm saying is true, and that I have an 18-foot drawbridge that goes across that creek, and the north end of it's about ready to fall into that creek ditch. But anyway, that's pretty much the concerns I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And let's see, Will, would you like to step forward and answer the question?
Yeah, we would. Patrick, do you mind? I think we're for. Thank you.
And Patrick, you're one of the engineers.
I appreciate you bringing up your concerns, and I think some of them we will be addressing, well, all of them. But I want Patrick here from Anderson Civil Engineering discuss the basins specifically, and then I think we've touched on that your area of concern is something that we've talked about with the city, and yeah, okay, we'll address that right now.
Okay. I was hoping Patrick would have talked during the first, but we'll let you speak now.
Sure. Patrick Joyce with Anderson Engineering. Okay, so to address the first problem, I apologize I don't have a great detail to show everybody, but I think it would be clear if I did. I'll try to explain what those underground detention basins look like to address the siltation. You're absolutely right. That does happen over time. So what the detail of that includes is we have these plastic domed chambers, and we actually create a subbase underneath those chambers for the water to percolate down into. We incorporate in the design what we call an isolator row. The isolator row is purely to catch the very first flush of water that comes through the system. It's coated with geofabric before the water is allowed to go into the rock base. And so what that does is it collects the sediment on the geofabric and collects trash inside that isolator row. And then, yes, that isolator row is inspected periodically to see how well it's functioned, and then it can be jetted out and cleaned at that time. So that's basically how that works, how maintenance works on those. I think the other point that was brought up was was where the water is releasing. Right now, the water is releasing. There is a small swale. I've been out to see this for myself before I directed the water there. That the site uses right now on the south side, in that southeast right where we are releasing. It's done that over time. It's not something, of course, that we had anything to do with, but it's really the only spot that we can release the water. So what city requirements for us were to release that water. For one, we released it no more than the amount that's going there now. So the peak level that's releasing is being held back by those 3 detention basins. So our release rate doesn't generate a higher peak as it runs off through that property. I don't know if there's another question or if that satisfies what.
Go ahead, Steve.
Patrick, how often are the detention basins inspected for the trash and silt?
The inspections are generally, when you first install them, you generally have stuff like construction that'll generate sediment and stuff like that. You need to inspect them more often, but then generally it's a couple times a year, and there's inspection ports. You just kind of look down there and you can see how they're doing, and then the inspection and the maintenance people actually can kind of establish after, some period after construction, they know kind of, hey, these things needed every 2 years, or something like that, just based on the site and how much it's being generated.
Are those professionally cleaned, or can their general maintenance person do that?
You have to use something called a JV truck. It's a jetter vacuum. What it does is it's a system that uses high pressure water, like a pressure washer, that moves through that chamber, and then it has a vacuum that follows right below it, right behind it, and you just pull it back through, sucks everything up, and washes it clean. So I know Ace Pipe Cleaning does it. I don't know that these guys would actually invest in a JV truck because they're quite expensive, but Ace Pipe Cleaning around town here does that.
Thank you, Patrick. Go ahead.
Is there a life expectancy to these systems?
In perpetuity. The plastic it uses is high density polyethylene. It'll last you easy 7,500 years.
Thank you. Okay, now we will stick to anybody that would like to speak in opposition. Yes, sir. Please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
My name is Ron Boney. I live at 104 Northeast 74 Terrace for 56 years. I've seen that creek back there erode something terrible over the years, caused by many things. My question, I always knew that property would be sold, but never in my wildest dream did I think I'd have 200 to 300 people living in my backyard. And the other thing that concerns me was the height of the buildings and the number of them. It just seems like there's too much for so little piece of ground. The other part I'm concerned about, besides the water runoff, will this project affect the sewers that currently run through my property, the middle of my property? Are they going to tie into them, and are they big enough for it, for 200 or 300 people? That's my question.
Thank you, Mr. Boney. Is there anybody else that is in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. It's a very good discussion, good questions that came up. We're going to move now on to item number 11 on the agenda. It's the first reading of Bill number 21-22, that being an ordinance and final development plan regarding the zoning ordinance regulations and the establishment of the use districts within the city of Gladstone, Missouri for property located at 7506 North Oak Traffic Way, 7510 North Oak Traffic Way, and then the parcel 136-090-00102-200. A motion, please.
Mayor Mellons,
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to place bill number 21-22 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 21-22 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-22 on its first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First, first reading, Bill number 21-22, an ordinance and final development plan regarding zoning ordinance regulations and the establishment of use districts within the city of Gladstone, Missouri, for property located at 7506 North Oak Traffic Way, 7510 North Oak Traffic Way, and parcel 1360900102200.
Mayor Mellons.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 21-22, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 21-22, waive the rule, place the bill on its second and final reading. Any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-22 on its second and final reading, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 21-22, an ordinance and final development plan regarding zoning ordinance regulations and the establishment of use districts within the city of Gladstone, Missouri, for property located at 7506 North Oak Traffic Way, 7510 North Oak Traffic Way, and parcel 1360900102200.
Mayor Mellons.
Councilmember Spallo.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 21-22 and enact it as ordinance number 4.560.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 21-22 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.560. Is there any discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I have appreciated the developer and city staff's efforts to go above and beyond for addressing the stormwater issues. You know, because I know we have issues there, and I appreciate the extra effort, extra engineering that was done to try to address them. And I know as the project goes forward and the plans for the site and the development, I know you'll keep that as a foremost issue for all of us. I'm also, one of the things as I understand looking at the project, 76 Terrace. I know we're talking about stormwater and drainage on the south and the southwest corner, but 76 Terrace, the street that leads up to Hobby Hill, that is essentially the northern border of this project. And there's nothing that's happening on this project that does anything that affects in any way the water north of 76 Terrace, best I can tell. And I don't know that I'm allowed to ask questions, but that's my understanding of it, and that's a major issue, you know, for us. So
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem.
thank you. And so with that, I'm going to be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mayor Mellons,
Yes.
I just wanted to say I do appreciate this investment in our community.
Yes. Thank you.
In an area that has been lacking in new development. So I'm hoping this will be a great new addition to our city.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo.
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnes.
Aye.
Mayor Mellons.
Aye. Bill number 21-22 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.560. The next item on tonight's agenda is the first reading of Bill number 21-23. It's an ordinance authorizing our city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with Clay County Public Health Center to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to homebound residents. A motion, please.
Mayor Mellons,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to place Bill number 21-23 on its first reading.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 21-23 on its first reading. Any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-23 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 21-23, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Clay County Public Health Center to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to homebound residents.
Mayor Mellon.
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 21-23, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading, Bill number 21-23, waive the rule and place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-23 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 21-23, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperative agreement with the Clay County Public Health Center to provide COVID-19 vaccinations to homebound residents.
Mayor Mellon.
Councilmember Moore.
I move to accept the second reading of Bill number 21-23 and enact the ordinance and enact the bill as ordinance 4.561.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 21-23. Enact the bill as ordinance number 4.561. Any discussion?
Mayor Mellon.
Councilmember Moore.
I just want to say that I am certainly in support of this. This bill will allow our fire EMS to take vaccines to homebound residents. And in light of the importance of everybody getting shots in their arms, I think this is really a great thing that we can do for our personnel.
Thank you. Let's see. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Spallo.
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Aye.
Mayor Mellon.
Aye. Bill number 21-23 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.561. The next item on the agenda is the first reading of Bill number 21-24. It's ordinance repealing section 1.125.380 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, pertaining to the Sheriff's Retirement Fund surcharge.
Mayor Mellon.
Councilman Frisbee.
I move to place Bill number 21-24 on its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to place Bill number 21-24 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-24 on its first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
First reading, Bill number 21-24, an ordinance repealing section 1.125.380 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, pertaining to the Sheriff Retirement Fund surcharge.
Good.
Mayor Mellon.
Councilmember Frisbee.
I move to accept the first reading of Bill number 21-24, waive the rule, and place the bill on its second and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the first reading of Bill number 21-24, waive the rule, place the bill on its second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of placing Bill number 21-24 on its second and final reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk, please read the bill.
Second reading, Bill number 21-24, an ordinance repealing section 1.125.380 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gladstone, Missouri, pertaining to the Sheriff Retirement Fund surcharge.
Mayor Mellon.
Councilman Frisbee.
I move to accept the second and final reading of Bill number 21-24 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.562.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the final reading of Bill number 21-24 and enact the bill as ordinance number 4.562. Any discussion?
Mayor Mellon. I wonder if I could ask our city councilor to just give us the cliff notes of this for the benefit of our audience.
Yes, the city currently by statute imposes a $3 surcharge on each matter in municipal court. Missouri Supreme Court on June 1st ruled that surcharge, that statute, is unconstitutional, so this is basically a cleanup item for us to remove it from our city code. We're no longer authorized to charge that $3.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Spello.
Aye.
Councilman Frisbee.
Aye.
Councilmember Moore.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garnis.
Aye.
Mayor Mallon.
Aye. Bill number 21-24 stands enacted as ordinance number 4.625. Moving on to the 14th item, it's the consideration of the financial report month ending June 2021.
Mayor Mellon,
Councilmember Moore.
I move to approve the financial report for the month end June 2021.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the financial reporting ending June 2021. Is there any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the financial report ending June 2021 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The financial report is approved. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. It's nice to see an audience. Again, for our developers, thank you for believing in Gladstone. It's a wonderful community and you're going to make it better. Any other business before the City Council this evening? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Good comment.
Okay.
What did it get